Flying with the National Guard over the border is eye-opening. We saw what a daunting task guardsmen have monitoring hundreds of miles of the desert border and how they manage to do it with dwindling resources. It starts with a network of cameras placed along the border.
We sometimes operate in shifts. We just gather surveillance.
The cameras are the eyes and ears of the desert, but the Guard says they need more hands and feet because they deal with so many dangers. Drug lords are finding new ways to evade border soldiers. Smugglers get pretty sneaky with how they bring drugs into the United States. Take a look at this tire. It's been manufactured so that there's a compartment to fit the drugs inside this tire rim. The drug runners are so dangerous we can't even show you the faces of the soldiers because they're worried about attacks from drug gangs.
The trunk, forward part of the trunk is another popular place. They like to make a false wall.
Smugglers are desperate to get their goods across, and Colonel Richard Clark spoke candidly about how desperate Mexican nationals are to get into America illegally. Colonel, how often do you find children in the groups that you encounter?
Pretty much, probably about 50% of the time, we'll find children and families that want to bring their kids across.
Colonel Clark says his troops are stretched so thin, by the time they find illegal crossers, the people are dehydrated and severely sunburned. Then the guards have to take on another job.
They will provide first aid for them. Because let's face it, that's our number one is the humanitarian part.
Another problem, much of the U.S.-Mexico border is separated just by this, a barbed wire fence. And the fence isn't maintained by the U.S. government. Many times it's just maintained by ranchers, only making it easier for smugglers to find ways in. The Guard is constantly looking for ways to cut expenses. So where on this is the camera?
It's right here, so on the side camera. There's a front look and a side view.
New technology like this unmanned UAV plane is emerging and likely will be the future of drug surveillance. Operating this is far cheaper than adding manpower on the border. The New Mexico National Guard's budget has been cut every year for the last 10 years.
Our poor soldiers don't know, are they going to have a job or are they not at the end of the fiscal year?
In their early 90s, more than 250 full-time Guard members manned the border. Today, that number is down to 50.
There are other competing priorities.
So Clark and his troops are fighting two battles, one against drugs and crime on the border, the other with politicians in Washington to keep this mission funded. Clark says he can't win one without the other. On the U.S.-Mexico border, Chris Ramirez, KOAT Action 7 News.